If you are looking for something, don't go sit on the seashore and expect it to come and find you. You must search, search, search with all the stubbornness in you. There are no small parts, only small actors. Don't spend your time chasing after an inspiration that once chanced your way. It is an unrecoverable as yesterday, as the joys of childhood, as first love. Bend your efforts to creating a new and fresh inspiration for today. It may not be as brilliant, but you have the advantage of possessing it today.
Hello, testing. There we go. All right. All right. Any kids want to come up? Any kids? Hey, grown-ups are welcome. Absolutely. Grown-ups are welcome. No kids today? Okay. All right. Well, young in spirit, who would like to open the Wonder Box? Cynthia? It's already unlatched. Show it to everybody. Yes, a question mark. What could it mean? Well, so does anyone remember when I was last up here at doing Wonderbox, what we talked about? I was in the back. Yes, we did. Yes. That wasn't me. That wasn't me. I had a bunch of invisible masks in here. Invisible masks. And we talked a little bit about acting. And so the theme for today's service is yes and that is a thing that's drawn, that's a little phrase that's drawn from acting, from improvisation. So today, here in the Wonder Box, we're going to talk a little bit about improvisation. And who can tell me what improvisation is? John? Making it up as you go along. That is pretty much right on. Any other thoughts about improvisation, Cynthia? Spontaneous acting out of inspiration. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. And so I'd like to try a little something today. All you grown-ups got up here. You didn't know what was going to happen. Okay, so rather than talk a lot about improvisation, I'd like to demonstrate a little bit about improvisation, if you all are willing. And I'll participate too, so nobody's too on the spot. It's very simple. It's not difficult. It's very, very easy. Are y'all willing to do that? Sure. Yeah. Sure, man. That's the attitude. That's a yes and right there. Sure, man. That's a perfect yes and. Yes, Cynthia? Yes, Cynthia is not a plant. Even though we're roommates, she is not a plant. So would anybody else like to join us up here? Yeah, last chance? Okay. So, yeah, right. So let's everyone stand over by the piano. And I'll go first. What we're going to do is a very, very simple exercise. We are going to simply walk from here to here. How we're going to do it is the trick. This is the silly walk. So don't think about it. This is the important thing. Don't think about it. Don't plan it. Just do a silly walk. It can be any silly walk you want. Don't do what someone else has done. Just do any silly walk you can. So I'll go first. Here we go. Okay? That was my silly walk. Don't think about it, just go. Someone go. Excellent, John. Excellent. Wonderful. Perfect, Jennifer. Yes. Yes, Tracy. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Jim? Jim. There's a little John Cleese in that walk. Absolutely. Fantastic. Oi, oi. All right. Wonderful. Now we're not done. We're not done. We're going to walk back. And this time when we walk back, it's a new silly walk, but this time we're going to add a sound. We're going to add any sound. No words, just a sound. Okay? So, new silly walk. There we go. Somebody go. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Perfect. Wonderful. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Very good. Yep. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great, Tracy. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Now, this is the last one. I know. It's a workout. This is the last one. The last one. I want you to remember one that you saw and mimic it. Don't think about it. Don't try to get it perfect. Just remember one that you saw and mimic it. Excellent. Good. Somebody go. Don't think. Don't think. Don't think. And you can repeat too. You can repeat one that's already happened. No problem. Perfect, John. You can repeat one that's already gone. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Let's give everybody a round of applause, please. So the point of this exercise is just, you can all sit. Yeah, you don't have to sit up here. Please. Yeah, John's not done. John's going to thank you for the support. So yeah, the point of that is to do without thinking, is to jump in and go and do without thinking, just to make a decision and follow an inspiration. And that really is the nature of play. That is the nature of play. So, with that in mind, let's sing our young people out, shall we?
My father reinvented himself the summer before I entered third grade, when we moved in to my grandpa Erman and great-grandmother's house in Laketon, Indiana. My dad had examined his life as a comptroller for Magnavox, and after being employed 2 separate companies where his supervisors requested that he illegally keep 2 sets of books, he wanted to be his own boss. Dad had planned ahead before we relocated. He built on his current skills by taking evening courses in electrical wiring, plumbing, and construction. He also purchased land from my grandpa. Meanwhile, my mom was hired for a part-time teaching position at Manchester College in the Department of Education. Our family had to accept and adjust to the usual unexpected circumstances of life. My parents had misguided plans that my mother's father would mentor my dad as he began farming and building small houses. Grandpa mostly only offered ongoing criticism of Dad's efforts. On his own, my dad resorted to using a multitude of wood shims to even out the framing of his first project, later to be our new home. And the back field Grandpa had sold Dad turned out to be the most muddy, making harvest complicated when the tractor got stuck in the mud. After a year, we finally moved into our own home Dad persevered, selling several houses. He raised pigs and harvested corn. Meanwhile, my mother gardened and canned produce with great-grandma, while she also worked and raised Janine and me. My sister and I went from having our own bedrooms to sleeping on 2 sofas downstairs. We had to make new friends. On the plus side, we loved being on the farm. We caught lightning bugs, and we played tag, running through the stalks of corn. Our new life settled over the years in Indiana. Dad now worked as an electrician and tax consultant. Mom became a full-time professor, earning the respect she wanted, and she'd thought she would gain as an executive's wife. Janine, like Mom, had graduated from Manchester College and became a teacher. I turned my love of being outdoors into an adulthood of teaching science outside. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, lived almost to 103, and she was mentally competent up until the last months of her life. Grandpa found a new lady friend. My father's yes moment was acknowledging where he was in life and building upon his skills. His and was accepting the new possibilities that the world had to offer our family in rural Indiana. This led us to a life we wouldn't have had if we'd remained in the suburbs of Syracuse, New York. This was my family's yes and moment. My mother recently told Janine and me that she has led a good life. And Dad was able to enjoy a quiet retirement. What are your yes and responses to what life offers you? How do you as a congregation, how do we as a congregation use the yes and technique for courageous action in face of today's injustices? Lost in the forest, I broke off a dark twig and lifted its whisper to my thirsty lips. Maybe it was the voice of the rain crying, a cracked bell, or a torn heart. Something from far off, it seemed deep and secret to me, hidden by the earth, a shout muffled by huge autumns, by the moist, half-open darkness of the leaves. Waking from the dreaming forest there, the hazel spring sang under my tongue. Its drifting fragrance climbed up through my conscious mind, as if suddenly the roots I had left behind cried out to me, the land I had lost with my childhood. As I stopped, wounded by the wandering scent. My favorite event as harvest season approaches is the rough seed that escaped the plots. If there's a cornfield adjacent to another bed of vegetables, you can count on imperfection. You can see stalks standing where they're not supposed to. The winds have ideas. Seeds who choose wildness, here they are, with red potatoes, alfalfa, peas, sunflowers. They look pleased with themselves, outfoxing clever farmers, making it to the unplanned ground where nobody is around, recovering where the amiable dirt will welcome them. Seeds are so fun and determined. There's no concept of liberty, no need for it. Guaranteed, if I were a seedling, I'd abstain. You know I would. I'd find a way to renounce what's expected of my common name, gliding over the roads until a dream takes root.
So, here we are. All right. It's lovely to see you, all of you. And today we're talking about this theme of yes and. But before we get into that, I'm wondering if you all might be willing to try one more simple embodied exercise. Now, let me preface this. This is nothing like silly walks. It is very simple. It doesn't require any performance. It's not strenuous. It's not fast. It's very, very simple. Would you all be willing to indulge me? Yeah? Okay. So, here's how it works. I'll say begin. And when I say begin, we'll do this. We'll all stand up and we'll move to another part of the sanctuary and sit back down. Okay. Now, before we get going, I want to give a couple other instructions and a couple of notes about mobility. All right? The first instruction is, I'd like you to move a bit away from the place that you're currently sitting. So don't just change seats to the one right next to you, okay? I'd like you to get a bit of a distance from where you are. The second is, if you typically sit on the aisle because of mobility issues, please feel free to stay sitting on the aisle. Just move up or move back, etc. Okay? The last thing is that there is no need to rush. Zero need to rush. Do it slowly. It may take a couple of minutes. That's fine. And remember that we all don't need to rush to the aisle to make our move. We have these side aisles, and we can all move out on the side aisles to our new place. So everyone got a handle on this? Okay. Everyone cool? All right, begin. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, why we did this a bit later. But you have all just engaged in perhaps what is the first act of improvisation. So good on you. And we've got the two rebels up here. Fantastic. Fantastic. This I love. All right, so let's talk about this yes and business. As some of you know, and I've laid out a bit, that yes and comes from the world of improvisation. It's an overarching instruction that works like this. Let's say you have two improvising actors on the stage. One actor will propose something. That actor might say, "Look, it's Godzilla." And if the other actor says, "Nah, that ain't Godzilla," well, the improvisation starts to die right there. A more yes and thing for that second actor to say would be like, "Oh my God, it is Godzilla. But is he wearing a bikini?" The yes is, yes, that is Godzilla. The and is he wearing a bikini, right? Now that first actor who started the improv now has a world of options. They can say, "Wait a minute, that's my bikini. He's going to stretch it all out. Quick, we've got to stop that lizard." There's the story now has propulsion if both actors constantly deliver to each other a yes and an and. Improv actors that master yes and can build on these ideas, any idea, indefinitely. Every sketch you've seen on Saturday Night Live is built and generated through various applications of yes and. Another aspect of yes and is that it's flexible. The application isn't limited to verbal acting. You can use it in dance. Let's say an improvising dancer proposes a movement. And the next dancer takes that movement and allows it to inspire another movement. Yes and can even be done alone. Take a solo dancer. This improvising dancer might start a move and then follow their own choreography. They're following their own impulse, one impulse to the next, to the next, to the next. And if you record that, then you've got choreography. So most artists use some version of yes and, like say a writer. Let's say a writer comes up with an idea, but then says to themselves, nah, that's not a good idea. Well, what happens next is nothing. That's writer's block in a nutshell. The story that might have been can never be because the writer didn't follow their own yes and. They didn't yes and that first idea. Painters can use yes and, musicians use it. Imagine how many times over the decades the Rolling Stones proposed ideas to one another. If in the beginning those guys had looked at each other and said, nah, I don't want to play this weird, Muddy Waters-inspired blues rock stuff, that band would have been over before it began. So yes and is the act of saying yes to a new idea, impulse, inspiration, and then adding another idea of impulse or inspiration. It's trying something on without knowing how that something is going to fit or where it's going to lead. By the way, Gary's work here today, that was improvisation. His saxophone playing. So now, is yes and always appropriate? It depends. If you're doing brain surgery, it is probably not a good idea to randomly improvise. Conversely, if you're a product designer and you're trying to help your team become more innovative, then yes and is an excellent tool. So I've been reflecting on how much pluralism is like yes and. As pluralists, we get to say yes and to entire worldviews. We can imagine what it would be like to see the world through a Jewish lens, or a Buddhist lens, or paganism, or atheism, or Hinduism, or indigenous beliefs. We pluralists can fill in the blank of belief because we are open to a cosmological yes and. Now, there can be traps within the cosmological yes and. There can be the danger of cherry picking certain beliefs to avoid discomfort or self-confrontation. We might dive into Buddhism only to find that we really don't want to practice letting go of that one favorite ego attachment. Or take Christianity. Maybe we discover that loving thy neighbor is easy when we agree with them, but what about when we absolutely cannot agree with them? What about when the instruction to forgive feels like a bridge too far? There's the danger of cultural appropriation, thinking that just because we're well-intentioned pluralists, we might be entitled to borrow from other traditions without permission or without giving credit to the original keepers of the beliefs we're exploring. And also, we pluralists sometimes I find, that we might not quite feel at home in any one tradition, like we're always a guest in somebody else's house, unrooted. So how do we avoid these traps? How do we stay open to the cosmological yes and while maintaining a grounded moral center that doesn't let us scoot away from life's uncomfortable lessons or borrow stuff carelessly or drift in spiritual unrootedness? For this pluralist, a home base of belief is important. Now, before I go on, I want to underline 3 words here. For this pluralist, for me, a home base of belief is helpful. Some folks don't have as squirrely an ego as I do. Some folks have a calm moral center from which they can engage their pluralist wanderings without worrying about those traps. I'm one who needs a home base. I need a set of beliefs that's both flexible enough to keep me open to the cosmological yes and, but also reminds me that cherry picking my way around life's uncomfortable lessons is not usually in my best interest. Now, here we might say, yeah, Judd, I think you're onto something. What might be a good home base to keep me cosmologically open yet safe from the pluralist traps you're describing? I have no idea. It's not that I don't know what a home base of belief looks like for me. It's that I don't know what it looks like for you. I really don't. One thing we UUs do is, in avoiding these traps, is we agree on a set of principles around which we join in covenant. Those agreements, affirmations, these aspirations are a great home base. There's also the idea that among the many beliefs we explore, one might dive deeper into a particular system, and once knowing that system well, might use it as a home base. I do that with Buddhism and the teachings of the recovery movement. That combination makes a particularly great home base for my squirrely ego. It's different for everybody. So assuming we can work through these traps, another interesting thing about pluralism is that in it we can do something uniquely artistic with our cosmologies. Pluralism gives us the ability to compose. I'm imagining the word compose in the same way a musician might compose music. Before I get into composition, though, let's map where we've been so far. We've got improvisation tool of yes and, then the idea that yes and pluralism are kind of similar, then the idea that it might be helpful to develop a home base of belief to keep us morally and cosmologically grounded as we explore our pluralism. I also said that finding home base is not, or finding home base or not, is up to each individual. And now I'm suggesting that well-grounded pluralism might enable us to become composers of our cosmological experience. Is that clear so far? We on the same page? This next bit is where it gets interesting. Let's think back to improv for just a second. We're imagining improv as an open-ended journey from one thing to the next. But to make improv work, there almost always has to be boundaries that give the improv a sense of structure. Okay, Saturday Night Live sketch has lots of boundaries. There's the fact that these performances are done on live TV. That's a boundary. Each sketch has a team of writers helping the actors to mine the best bits. That's a boundary. The sketches happen for a particular duration, at a particular place, at a particular time, and so on. These are all boundaries around the improvisation. So today, I want to introduce you to a set of improv tools. We could call them boundaries. These are tools that I find helpful when I'm imagining how I might become a composer of my cosmological experience. That set of tools is called the Viewpoints technique. Now, the Viewpoints were developed by a dancer, choreographer, performance art theorist. Her name was Mary Overlie. She taught at the Tisch Experimental Theater Wing in New York City from the late 70s until 2020 when she passed. In Overlie's system, there are 6 viewpoints. These 6 things are elements that she imagined were present in any performance of any kind. It doesn't matter what. Theater, film, music, dance, comedy, a political rally, a religious service, a public speak, a marketing expo, you name it. She would argue that all 6 viewpoints were all present all the time in any performance. The viewpoints are both a vocabulary and a lens for seeing and discussing and composing performance. Those 6 viewpoints are movement, space, time, shape, emotion, and story. Okay. So how does this relate? How does this relate to pluralism? Are the viewpoints supposed to be a home base? What are we talking about here? I don't usually see the viewpoints as a home base because they don't have a moral center, but they are a lens through which we can view our pluralist journey. For example, we could look at the practice of Buddhism through the 6 viewpoints. We could look at Unitarian Universalism through the 6 viewpoints. Any human situation could be contemplated through this lens. And we do this because as pluralists, I think we get to do this. I get to do this. I invite myself to do this because as pluralists, we get to play with belief. We get to dance with our own process of meaning making. We have permission, if you will, to wear rose-colored glasses simply because it makes things look pretty. We have a wide latitude as pluralists to see the poetry in everything, to journey out from our beliefs, to see if we can touch the mind of the universe. Pluralism invites us to tinker around with new lenses like the Viewpoints just for the fun of it. Let's think about them for just a second. Let's take movement. Let's take movement, the viewpoint of movement. In the moment before there was anything, scientists believed there was a singularity, and then suddenly, for reasons they can't explain, movement, massive movement, a huge release of energy. They call it the Big Bang. Then take space. Was there space before that single moment? We don't know, because nothing before that is measurable. We do know there was space afterwards because we're in it, and it's all around us. That was the exercise we just embodied. When we moved across the space, we embodied the first two viewpoints, movement and space. We changed our relationship to both things. And it gave us a new perspective, even if the new perspective is I'm just seeing the room for this side for the first time. Take a moment, just take a second and look around. Look around you. Look around at the room itself. Look around at the space itself. Have you ever seen it from this spot before? Some have, some haven't, maybe. Maybe it's new, maybe it's slightly different. How does it make you feel? Do you like it? Do you not? There's also time. We engaged in the time viewpoint in our movement. It took us a couple of minutes to get there. And time is a big one. We don't know what happened really after that Big Bang. But we know that time started there. And the reason we know this is because light moves at a constant speed. What we can see when we look out into the universe grows relative to that speed. In the time it took us to make this move, what we could see out when we look with these giant telescopes out into the universe, what we can see grew just a little bit because new light is always constantly arriving to our eyes. So when we talk about the universe, we're talking about what we can see, the observable universe. It's always growing in every moment, what we can see. We engage shape. There's the shape of the planets and all that stuff outside of us, the asteroids, moons, black holes, galaxies, all of that. But there's also the shapes of you and me. Here we are in this room, these strange, upright, walking, talking monkey cousins, all in different bodies, some old, some young, different sizes, heights, hair color, skin tones, a beautiful tapestry of difference, that shape. Emotion, we have emotion. Everyone feels emotions. We human animals seem to be the only ones, as far as we know, that can name our emotions, see them rise and fade away. Did any emotion raise while we were doing this movement? Were we happy, sad, grouchy? How are we feeling right now? Curious, bored, ready to go, irritated, glad? What emotions are stirring right now? And lastly is story. Every person in this room is an expert, an absolute world-class expert on one thing, and that's their own story. And all stories matter, even if they only matter to us. The universe has a story, and no one knows where it's going. That's an improvisation that never ends, the eternal yes and. That story will continue for eons after we humans have gone, maybe forever, and its conclusion is 100% unknowable. Now, if we were all actors, we'd be using the viewpoints in a different way. We'd look at a piece of performance or choreography, and we'd determine the project's relationships to those elements of movement, space, time, shape, emotion, and story. We'd tweak those elements, those 6 viewpoints, to suit our desire to shape the work. We'd use them like they were musical notes. We might adjust them to focus the piece more on movement or more on time, like rhythm and tempo. We might pay special attention to space by building a set that focused the audience's attention in a certain way. Here we are, and the space is focusing our attention in a certain way. The shapes in this space. So what we've done today in playing with the viewpoints is we followed this pluralist impulse by imagining the whole universe through this lens of 6 viewpoints. In that way, we've become composers of our cosmology. We've looked at it through a new lens. I love that the viewpoints helps focus on one thing. These things, space, time, shape, emotion, story, movement, these are things that we forget to pay attention to because they're so ordinary. They're simple, but they're also vast. For this pluralist, the ability to be composer of my own cosmology, it's the grandest improvisation because it invites me to touch a sense of aliveness. This is a sometimes fantastic, sometimes painful, sometimes boring, sometimes joyous process, but it's this process of touching the expression of aliveness. That's what makes me want to venture out into those places where unanswerable questions are. So to me, the invitation of Yes and is towards this delightful improvisation and meaning making. It's our pluralist mandate, in fact, I believe. It's our permission. It's our sacred call, and it's our joyful responsibility. Amen. May it be so. Ahom et takoyasin.